All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm Emily Moyer. Michael Wan is here with me. This is Project Kids episode number 20, and we have a playmate again today. And Michael sent me some videos from this gentleman a few weeks back and said, I want to do this with this guy. I think it's super timely to what's going on right now, both to sort of understand what we're looking at as we observe the nefarious nonsense in the outer world, but how we can sort of work our own mental matrix to master the, I don't know, malleability of our own minds during this strange time. So I think he's from Los Angeles, California. I don't know. We're going to find out. Michael Grady, welcome to Project Kids. How are you?
All right. Very good. I'm excited to be on this, on your guys' show, because I've seen some of your content and like you guys go really deep on stuff. So this is going to be fun.
All right. But before we do anything else, I have to ask you about that hair, dude. That's a lot of hair.
I'm honored to get that comment because I actually grew it all back and I was pretty much all bald. So that's pretty cool.
Wow.
I found ways to do it.
All right. Wow. Excellent. That's like quite a beard. I was like that. Yeah. I was looking at
Thank you.
I was like, is it like I wasn't sure if you had it like cut straight across so that the bottom of your hair is even with your
Oh my God, it's hilarious.
I was like trying to sort it all out. So
you all match the same length, right?
yeah.
I don't know. That's just how it is right now. It's like that.
All right.
Well, Michael, thank you for joining us. And before we get into that, Emily, I got a comment on that introduction. The number of M's. I don't know if did you catch that, Michael? Like all of this alliteration, and it was like off the top of her head. Like I was just like loving it. And then I was going to say, like, Emily, I know sometimes you get confused, and with the two Michaels, I know that's going to be a little bit confusing, but but I know she can do it. But then when she pointed out Michael's hair and Michael's beard, and in a very general sense, I realized he and I could be the same person, except I got like, it's like, before I got I can't grow it that long, both on the chin or the hair, but there's something interesting going on. All that said, Michael, thank you for coming on. This was my suggestion to Emily to have you on the show because I saw one of your videos. And this was a couple of weeks ago. And I think it got like a lot of attention. And it got a lot. I'm sorry?
It got me on Alex Jones.
It got you on Alex Jones. I mean, and the reason why it got so much attention is because it was so good. And it was so thought-provoking. And so maybe with that is kind of like a teaser, maybe you could give all of us like a little bit of introduction into like, who you are, and then maybe segue that into the video, which I'm referring to.
Okay, cool. Well, Michael, for you to say that it's thought-provoking, I am also, again, honored for you to say that because the videos you make are extremely thought-provoking. So I've been a stage hypnotist, hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, studied covert hypnosis. I've basically learned everything about the trade. I've studied with really, really good people, top level teachers, people who go on TV and all that stuff. And so honestly, I haven't really talked about this stuff in a really long time because no one was really caring about power of the mind or hypnosis for the longest time. When everything's just kind of fine and dandy and we can just get through life and it's not that bad, right? And now that, shit's really hitting the fan. Cool if we swear here? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now that it's getting to where it is right now, people are starting to look for answers, and now it's very easy to see, okay, the state of hypnosis actually might be happening now. Like, what's going on? Everyone's like not thinking correctly or critically thinking and stuff like that. And so, for the longest time, I didn't share this stuff. And then I saw this video that the Los Angeles School District came out with. Yes, I am in the LA area. I'm on the outskirts, out of the city though. And they put out this cartoon that was extremely manipulative, and this cartoon did go on like the high wire with Dell, and it was passed around because it does look manipulative, but there's so many hypnotic elements that I saw in it that I was like, this has to be explained. And now we're talking about kids. So now I'm coming out of my own like restrictions, you know, or anything like that, because I'm just focused on the kids. And I'm like, oh my God, we got to get this word out so parents and teachers actually see this. And thankfully, a lot of them did. And so basically, it's a 2-minute video where they hired a, I don't know if you saw Who Made It. Did you get to that part? So I made a part 2, and I broke down the whole Convid response team, which is another crazy reveal. And so the person who made it, I found out, was a person who is responsible for $12 billion in sales at the time. That was his book name. It's probably more than that now. So billions of dollars of sales, selling the George Foreman grill, the Juice Man juicer, Nordic Track, and all these popular products that we've seen on infomercials. Like that's who.
Hold on. So just to clarify, when you say the person who made this, who made the video, the commercial, I guess it was
that cartoon,
This was like the producer, the creative person. Like, what do you mean made it?
I believe it said produced and directed by. At the end, because there's a longer version where like the principal talks beforehand and the superintendent and stuff. So there's like a couple people who talk in it where he's like, now let's turn it over to my friends at Microsoft who make the tracking app.
Right.
And so at the end of that video, it shows who made it, right? It just blatantly shows made by Steve Dworman. Now, like, okay, we found who it is. All right, let's look up Steve Dworman. So I do the whole like YouTube, you know, searching everything out and making fun of him and stuff, you know. But really, yeah, the guy is an infomercial giant that they hired to make this video, and it makes sense because I also find out he's put out a marketing program called Mind Capture, right? The guy knows NLP and sales at a ridiculous high level, right? And the hypnosis concepts go hand in hand with sales, right? Because if I can convince you to have a hallucination, you know, then I'll definitely be able to convince you to buy something, right? And so, it literally took me 20 minutes to break down this 2-minute cartoon video, basically getting kids to follow along with the tracking app and eventually sign up on the app to get their vaccines. And it's really mortifying, honestly, to see what they were doing. You know, it took me 20 minutes to break down most of the hypnotic concepts, and I didn't even talk about all of them, you know, just kind of the top most important ones. For example, so how is hypnosis like even relevant to this thing, to what we're talking about, you know? Well, the news uses hypnosis all the time, right? Some of us might be able to pick it up. I mean, a lot of people probably don't. And it's not so much like, okay, stare at the watch and your eyes are getting sleepy, you know, like that's one induction, right? But really the induction that the news uses and this cartoon uses is basically when somebody gets you to feel an emotion, right? Fear, worry, those are the two main ones, right? Any emotion is an unconscious reaction. Okay. So if the news gets you to feel fear, first off, you would only believe it if you're feeling it, right? If you weren't feeling it, you wouldn't believe it. And so now that you're getting an unconscious response with fear, you're then, I didn't bring up my little diagram here, but the thing that gets you information into the subconscious mind is the critical factor, right? You have the conscious mind, which is kind of the very, very small percentage of the mind. If you have like a circle is a conscious mind, you have your subconscious mind, and then there's a line, like a gate, like which is we call the critical factor, right? You have to reason about things and come to your own conclusions until you believe them. But when you know hypnosis techniques, it's basically like hacking the computer and getting through the firewall, right? And so feeling an emotion is a way to do that, right? Any manipulative person that's like controlling their mate, you know, will get them to feel different emotions, right? Jealousy and sadness and guilt and all kinds of things, right? Manipulating your emotions, right? And the news does this, and this cartoon did it, right? So the cartoon did it. It kind of started off where they put a guilt trip into the kid by convincing them that if they get their parents sick and they die, then it's all on them, right? So they have the mother with a worry face and stuff like that. And they use little subliminal images. Like one of the things I pointed out in the second video is the mom's lips was literally a heart. You know, sometimes your lips can, I guess, kind of have a little heart if you put lipstick on that way or whatever. The mom's had a heart on her lips with a line going through it, you know, like a broken heart almost, right? And there's all these little subliminal things and the certain colors they use, and right, the little girl has a heart on her hair, a red heart, and she's also wearing the red mask, right, to kind of have that color association with love, and I love my family. And so not only are they stimulating fear and guilt into the kids to be protective to their families, right? Do this for their families. I share this in the second video where I actually got clips of kids saying this on camera. That's all they're saying. They also stimulate the feeling of love into this daily pass thing, which is like the whole premise of the video, to follow along with the tracking app. So you can print out this QR code. So when you show up to school, you get scanned, right? And then with your, you get your temperature checked, right? God. And so now the kids are getting used to, okay, I'm going to go on the app and I'm going to check off. I'm not sick. I'm not fatigued. I don't have a tickle in my throat, right? All these questions about, am I sick? Am I sick? Am I sick? Am I sick? Which from a hypnotist perspective, you're literally training the kids to be hypochondriacs, basically, right? I feel like I'm talking really fast to like get through.
You're doing great. Can I interject for a second?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
So a couple things, like if you're watching the show, I would recommend you might want to pause now and watch Michael's video to see what we're talking about. And that's going to be, Emily will link that in the words beneath the talking faces. And what for me personally, what I found so appealing about Michael's presentation is it's so concrete to see like how it works. And then at the same time, what it does is like, as Michael said in the beginning, it was like, you know, hypnosis ain't what you think it is. Like, you know, that's part of the smoke and mirrors, is like, you think it's something else. It's like as simple as like, as you're saying, like just the linking of the colors and the shapes, and like, you know, what you're just like going into like the more of like the unconscious part. You're not focused on that, but is going there. And the fact that the shit is made by the George Foreman Grill, the guy who came up with that. I mean, you have to take a step back. And if you're really looking at our culture, you're like, we're in an infomercial culture. And there's a reason why they sold 21 million one of these things that are horrible. It's because it works. It works. So I want to, let me just throw in a little bit of, when I really, my path with hypnosis, understanding hypnosis in like mainstream television, this goes back to the first Obama administrations. I don't even remember when that was, maybe 2008, 2007, and seeing all of the, like the uproar, which was going on in America at the time of this new candidate. And then I read an analysis of his speech speeches by an NLP expert practitioner, and he just broke the shit down, just like what Michael did. And he's like, oh, when you do this, and he's done this 17 times, so it's not by chance, like this is this known technique, and over again. And so I'm like, that really got me hooked, me as a person, to begin to look at all sorts of cult or media from this sort of way. And I'll even take a step further back. The first real time I experienced hypnosis, or like becoming aware of hypnosis in terms of media, and Emily in our pre-show recording, which is actually going to be on the backtrack of this, was on the day of September 11th. I remember that day very clearly. I was 30 years old at that time, living in Washington, D.C. And I remember like turning to my wife, I'm like, I did, like, I wasn't thinking like, inside job, but I remember saying, and I knew just a little bit then, I'm like, my emotions are being manipulated. The only reason they would be showing this like that is emotions. And so like, this has been a hot topic for me for a very long time, and a lens of mine in terms of understanding media, news, movies, all that sort of stuff. So I want to say that's why I'm so excited to have you here. And all of that, I guess, was just an opportunity for me to talk. But what I really am interested in, where I'm hoping we could go to, and then I'll let Emily say something, is it is my personal opinion that as we understand like why and how hypnosis works in terms of media and in terms of manipulating masses, it's actually just like a toe in the doorway of understanding a much larger understanding of experiential reality. And so like hypnosis, when you begin to understand that in these like 2-minute clips, and it makes sense, then we can begin to really go into like, what else is possible? What else is being manipulated? What even is reality? So that's kind of what I wanted to throw in at this point. Emily, let me give you an opportunity to speak before we have our excellent guest to come back, and I want to hear what he's got. I'm hanging on the edge of my seat. I can't wait to hear what he's got to say next.
All right. So in my own mind here, I've already closed the loop on something that like I knew, because so those pictures I showed you in the segment we just recorded, Michael, the ones that I said were from last night, I was taking them while I was listening to him and watch it like on the video and looking at the pictures when he was showing them. And I think I closed the loop on something that we were talking about. So I'll wait till sort of the end of this, segment to sort of say that, because I want to hear a little bit more about what he says. But my experiences with hypnosis, I mean, I understand we live in a bath of it all the time, but I also grew up in Los Angeles. I lived there most of my life. I just recently moved back here to Austin, where I have lived before, but I'm back and forth. So when I was a senior in high school, or maybe a junior, I can't remember which, I went to the hypnotist show at the Sportsman's Lodge. Did you ever go to that, Mike? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the first time that I ever been to something like that. And I was not surprised to see people like heads dropping and like doing funny stuff. But the thing that really I still have not resolved this in my head, was he made someone who I know can't dance like Paula Abdul dance like Paula Abdul, right? So to me in my head, I'm like, all right, what is this? Like, it can't be that there was this secret plot that I was never going to know until this moment that she could dance like Paula Abdul. Is it that humans have many more abilities than they're aware of, right? They do have the ability to see something, capture it, and then be able to imitate it, which also opens up a whole world of possibilities, that both exciting and terrifying, right? Because I was very familiar with Paula Abdul's dancing, and she was doing a pretty good job, right? So that, and then a couple of years later, when I was about 19 or 20, I had a therapist who I was having a hard time in life. And this therapist, with my consent, right, wanted to do like some hypnosis on me. And whatever she was doing, in the middle of it, I freaked out. Like, I snapped up out of it, and I was pissed. I was mad. Which probably, I had no idea what was going on in my life at that time. In hindsight, like, I've been through some of the Project Program MK Ultra stuff. And in hindsight, what happened in her office was probably a demonstration of the fact that, like, she had hit a wall she wasn't supposed to hit, because she wasn't the person who was supposed to hypnotize me, right? Somebody else probably was the owner of the access to behind that firewall or whatnot. But I mean, I remember just jumping up off her couch and being like a person with like you know, enough energy to scale Mount Everest, right? And just like, stop it. So those are my experiences with like that sort of direct either observation or sort of feeling it myself. But I've over the years done research on NLP, and I've watched a lot of, you know, hypnotist videos. I had a friend who had studied some NLP, and I have another friend who just recently completed some hypnotist training in Los Angeles and uses it in her practice and whatnot. So it's always been like on the edge of my conversations. But it was interesting to watch you like do with that little commercial, like what Michael and I do with the topics that we talk about in terms of pulling out every little item and going into how thick and rich and full of meaning all of these things are. So I could definitely appreciate that level of depth and just how powerful, like people have no idea the power in every word, in every image, in the order in which things are laid out, right? Like none of these things are by accident. It's not haphazardly done. And so I appreciated that. And yeah, so back to you.
How deep do you think it goes, Michael? How deep do you think the purposeful, like what I'll just use the word hypnosis goes? How much hypnosis is purposeful in terms of the people that create the stories for the masses? Like, do you think that is well, I'll let you answer. How deep does it go?
You mean how deep does it go as far as how it's being used?
Anything, like how often the techniques that we don't even are aware that those are techniques, like, you know, what is your thought? And I'm not trying to get all paranoid on it, but like in my opinion, is it goes real deep.
Yeah, totally. Well, first off, it's great to hear you guys' perspective on this. So you guys said a lot of things. I'm like wanting to follow up with some of them. So you know, what's possible as far as like, okay, there's this hypnosis thing. You know, you've seen the show, your friend danced like Paula Abdul. She never, you know, really danced before or was a bad dancer, right? You know, I used to do a lot of experiments when I first started doing this with different friends and people. And I really like tried so many things. And one of the things I did is, well, there was this guy who wanted to book my shows, and I went over his house and showed him the videos, and he was like, hypnotize me and my girlfriend. So I hypnotized them both separately. And his girlfriend was like giving me ideas of what to do. And one of the things was, I wanted to see if, you know, he couldn't juggle. We wanted to see if he could juggle. Okay, we wanted to see if that was like possible. Okay, so he's never juggled before. Okay, and usually that's a very, you gotta learn how to do that. Sometimes it takes a while for people to. So we grabbed a few potatoes. I told him while he was in the sleep state, you are a world-class juggler. You've been juggling for years, and you know exactly how to do it. So when I count to 3, you open your eyes. You're gonna pick up the potatoes and you're gonna juggle them like a professional. 1, 2, 3, open your eyes. He picks up the potatoes, and he drops them the first time. The second time he's juggling. You know, like crazy, right? So, you know, like that is possible. Like you can literally, Emily, you're right. Like it's kind of like, you know, you observe it, it's in your subconscious, and then you can just like act it out as if it's like rehearsed or something. It's really wild that that's even possible, right? So how deep does it go in like the media and stuff? Think about this. Us hypnotists, right? We're just one guy that shows up in front of a group of people, talks for like, you know, 10, 15 minutes. And, you know, and before you know it, these people are forgetting what their first name is, right? And they're going through all these wild routines that just like wouldn't happen normally. We're just one guy standing on stage with a microphone and maybe some sound effects and music or whatever. Imagine what it's like when you have millions of dollars invested into this thing and you do all these your own experiments and you have the media stations, right? I mean, then you got to start to think like, wow, if it's possible, and, you know, in my town on the stage and in the VFW or the sports hall or whatever in the school, you know, what can be possible when you're using this stuff on the TV, when you're on a regular basis all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And so just like I could train a hypnotist to learn the script of what to say on stage, you know, I mean, you literally could learn this stuff in like a couple of days. right? If you know exactly what to do. I mean, it's literally like learning a speech, right? And as long as all the elements are in there, you know, you will have success. Probably not super high as if you didn't understand it well, but you could still have success and hypnotize some people, like for sure, right? Especially if you have enough people. Now, what do newscasters do? They're really just reading a script, a very carefully scripted speech that they are, you know, doing. And so I think that's really an important point to know about and think about. You know, they don't have to be this professional NLP person or whatever, because we can just teach George Foreman, you know, to say the right stuff as an authority figure, to dress up in an apron and, you know, sell all these Teflon machines, right? So yeah, these companies have known it for a while. They've been practicing it very heavily for the past 100 years. So imagine that, right?
Okay. So, I want to ask you all these questions because, because I'm so fascinated, and I think it's such an important word or concept. And I think when you hear the word hypnosis, like that limits the implication of what hypnosis just points to something so much bigger. But that being said,
yeah, you think like you have to be relaxed to be hypnotized, like a lot of people think, right? That is not the case at all. In fact, the highest success rate I have hypnotizing people is like on the street doing waking hypnosis stuff.
Okay, so this is where I want to go with the question. So you often hear like whether they talk about placebo or like, you know, just like general, like the distribution of suggestibility to the typical person. I think I've heard it. And I'm curious if you find this to be true. And then secondly, like what exactly this implies. And what I've heard is like 20% of the population is very suggestible. 20% of the population is not really that suggestible. And then the other 60%, you know, in the bell curve is like, you know, somewhere like on that distribution. Have you found that to be true? And then what exactly, what is the significance of being both suggestible and not being suggestible? Like not even just in terms of hypnosis and like being controlled by people, but just being a person and what that says about their consciousness.
Yeah, that stat is generally correct. If you were to utilize that with like, say, a hypnosis show, you know, and the typical ways of inducing hypnosis. But the reveal is, and what the hypnotherapist doesn't want to tell you is that, you know, you can do things against your own will, and everybody can be hypnotized, because it depends on, first, in order for me to hypnotize somebody, I have to have rapport with them, right? I have to have a connection. They have to kind of trust me and know that I'm an authority on the subject and stuff like that, right? They're not going to just follow the directions of someone that they, you know, I don't know about this guy. It doesn't feel right. I don't trust him. You know, I don't even think this stuff works. And that, like, if that's like the internal process going on, it's not going to work, right? But anybody can go into hypnosis. I mean, we're looking at a point in time where we're seeing the most intelligent people get duped by this, you know, as well as everyone below that, you know, and in between. And so it really just depends on who you're listening to, if you trust the information, right? So, you know, when they start pulling like different authority figures and celebrities and sports stars to like push this thing, you know, that's when it starts to have an effect. Because imagine your favorite musician, whoever that is, right? And you're not aware of all this stuff that we talk about, comes out and says, yeah, I think it's a good idea. And you hang on every word. You watch everything that comes out. You go to every live show they have, right? And now they give you a suggestion and like, okay, you know, maybe I should do this thing. You know, it's the right thing. And my favorite people say it. Bam. Duped, right? And it's very simple, right? That is, if hypnosis is really, you know, it's a term that has a lot of preconceptions and that are you know, it's like a small portion of what it is, but it's a whole different scope. I mean, literally, if you accept an idea without critically thinking about it, that basically would be hypnosis. right? It's literally that simple, right? And I try to make it very simple and straightforward because it is. It's a natural thing, right? We can take an example of like a very a phenomenon you have to be in a deep state to achieve in the deepest states, which is like negative hallucination is one of the how I would test somebody to see if they were in the deepest state. Either that or
what does that mean? I've never heard that term before.
Negative yeah. Thanks for asking that. A negative hallucination, like the skit I would do on stage, is I make myself disappear, and then I move the chair around, and everyone freaks out, right? And try to make sure they don't run into the hallway and like try to run out of the building because they think it's a ghost or whatever, right? That's a very deep trance phenomenon that only the deepest people will experience. But guess what? We all experience that here and there, right? You're looking for your phone and you're frantically looking for it, and it's like in your hand, or it's like on the table where you left it, and you're like frantically looking. They're looking, where's my phone? Oh my God, I lost it. Oh my God, oh my God. You're like in this panic mode. I don't know where it went. I gotta go lay down. Then you come back. It's literally where I left it on the table, right? Or in my hand or in my pocket or whatever, right? I think we've all had this experience, right? It's like this artificially fear-induced state with an idea of, oh my God, I lost my phone, right? And you accept your own idea, right, with intensity of emotion, you know? and it's really amazing because it happens all the time. And it doesn't even have to be that intensive emotion, because it can be something like, oh, I'm making a sandwich and I'm gonna have some ketchup on my sandwich. I'll look for look for the ketchup, go in the fridge. Man, I know we had ketchup, like I bought it last week and I hardly used it, or I used it a couple of times. Where is it? I don't know. You know, okay, well, let me go get some orange juice. Go look for the orange juice. The ketchup's sitting right there in the middle, right? You had negative hallucination. You didn't even see it, although, you know, for whatever reason, it just like went right over your head.
So negative hallucination, like we think of a regular hallucination is like when we're on acid, we see pink elephants dancing across the wall that aren't really there.
Right.
And the negative hallucination is the inability to see something that's staring you right in the face.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's something that's there that you don't see. And I mean, maybe we could say negative hallucination is not seeing the truth, right? But that was just just one example of something like that. You know, you can also like not feel pain when you're very focused on something, and you realize, oh my gosh, what is this bruise on my leg? I don't even remember how I got it. You know.
So let me ask you this. So I try not to get into arguments with people who don't see the world the way I see, because it seems fruitless to me. But I love to read people have those arguments. I just don't want to have any game. Right? And so one of my favorite things to like witness is like a really rational minded like person explain why the mainstream narrative of 9/11 is a factual story. And then like the person who's like taking the opposite, like ultimately always had, you know, when they're like, oh, the plane could definitely bring it down and bad construction or what have you. And then they bring up, well, what about building number 7 or the third building, you know, and that to like the way you just described negative to hypnosis, like that seems to me to be like part of the rational minded person who is unable to see that or to allow that third building's collapse or even both buildings falling in this controlled demolition looking like a free fall, like not seeing like that, not resonating. Is that like kind of like a negative hallucination, would you say?
Yeah, you know, I've never really thought of it like that, but it makes sense that it would. You know, we always call it like cognitive dissonance, and it probably is. You know, because the news is always saying, "Don't listen to the conspiracy theories, conspiracy theories," right? So that's probably a way that they're inducing the negative.
I mean, the words get tricky because it's like, you know, it's like we're using a word, but like looking at the behaviors, like, or like what people do is fascinating. And like, that's what is so good to hear with you now. Let me ask you this other question. So, like I love the idea of hypnosis. I'm always trying to play with it within myself and like, you know, aware of like really like why a technique would be effective and going to a deeper questions. Like, what does that say about how consciousness works and being human and all that sort of stuff? So that being said, like I know someone who is like really good with like regression type of like hypnosis and stuff like that. And I wanted that.
That's very effective technique.
I wanted that done to me so bad. And I've gone to a couple of different things. Like I had an inner desire to really want to go and do that and to like, you know, for whatever Mike's personal reasons, but I've never been able to get there. But I know other people who've worked with the same person who've had like wonderful experiences. Like, what's your thought in terms of that? And maybe tying this in also to like why some people aren't buying into the story and some people are. Like, what's your thought into that? And particularly when someone has a desire to want to go deep, but seemingly cannot.
Yes. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors involved. You know, you're a very thoughtful person, right? Like you really break things down, and you've probably been doing it for a while. You're probably unconsciously competent of like thinking things through, and that will stop your focus in listening to someone and just following orders.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you'd have to. So an induction that would work for someone who's not so much of an independent thinker, or just trust the person and doesn't have an issue with it. You know, that you would probably need some different inductions that keep your mind active a little more, maybe. You know, it also can be a training thing where, you know, you've done it a few times, but hey, you know what? I can practice drawing and I still won't be as good as some of these people who do it for like the first time and they're just like ridiculously good, you know? So it can be something you're just wired to do easily, you know? It depends, right? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. In fact, the drawing analogy is really good, because a really good drawer literally sees the world different than someone who isn't a good drawer. They see it in symbols, and like the good drawer is drawing as it is, and that's a whole lot easier said than done.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you know, we're all of us are, you know, some of us are really good in sports. Some of us are absolutely not. You know, some of us are good navigating through our mind in that different way, you know, and some of us aren't. But not to say that you're not good navigating through your mind, because you obviously are in ways that you live, right? I mean, but maybe just listening to someone, you know, going through the progressive relaxation just doesn't do it for you, you know? Maybe if you were doing it to yourself, you know, and figured out that kind of thing, it could be helpful. You know, it actually, so I'm gonna answer a couple questions here with this concept. So, you know, you would love to learn how to do hypnosis with yourself, right? And this is how I got started. I had emotional issues. My dad was abusive, and I was basically traumatized, and I was extremely shy. And as a musician, when I started playing, I would not even move on stage, and my friends are like, "Dude, you gotta like dance a little bit," and I would just be like stiff, you know, right? And I knew I had an issue. Right. And I knew I had to fix it because I was not happy and I was not myself and I was always worried and all this stuff, you know. And so fortunately, I found a book on self-hypnosis when I was younger. You know, when I was a teenager, I found it. And this was something I prayed for because I knew I had to find something. And I just did it all the time. You know, I had this warehouse job where I'd sneak off into the boxes and just like take forever to do my work because I'm off hypnotizing myself all the time to try to figure this stuff out. And it worked. You know, I was able to go up to my dad when I was 19 and say, "Hey, Dad, you know what? I forgive you. It's all good." You know, with no resentment, no emotional heaviness. Like I totally corrected it. You know, and from that point, it was easy for me to do it with other people because I figured out the directions, you know, just like you would direct someone over the phone to come to your house that's out of town who's never been there. And you go, "Oh, what landmark are you at? Okay, yeah, take this road, take that, and blah, right?" I can do the same thing with someone in their waking consciousness to get into that state or get into a different state, right? I was actually an insurance salesman for a little bit, and I was like one of the top guys, right? Because I could navigate someone's feelings, So, and it's a very, very simple. See, it's a lot of people miss when a concept is so simple that they don't think it's important. It really just comes down to a technique called pacing and leading. Have you heard this one before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
but walk us through. Walk us through. Just because I heard it before doesn't mean that I got it right.
Okay. Yeah. That's yeah. So, but you've heard it, right? It's pacing and leading, right? Right. So, the perfect example is, okay, now that you're seated, ready to be hypnotized, as the person is, right? Take a nice deep breath in and fill your lungs completely. Right? It seems like such a general statement, but there's so much going on in that statement, right? One of which, the main concept is, I paced you. You're sitting in the seat, ready to be hypnotized, right? Because they're ready to do that. There's processes leading up to that moment as well to make it all work. And then I led them to take the nice deep breath in and fill their lungs full of air, right? Very simple, okay? Now, as you exhale, allow yourself to relax down even deeper, right? And so I paced them again because they're going to exhale, right? Paced in the present moment. I led them to relax, to exhale, and then now start to relax your body. They could have just sat there and exhaled, but now the focus with the exhale is to relax. Exactly, yeah. And so you continue this process, right? Then we can start to use the visualization. Okay, now imagine your eyelids are getting heavy like curtains, drooping, drowsy, heavy, right? And you start to use these imagination techniques in small incremental steps. Okay, now the quality of relaxation in your eyes, you can now bring down to your entire body as your muscles hang from the bones like a hammock on the beach, just waving back and forth, right? And so... And so, like, it's very simple, but guess what? In a few minutes, you're just so deeply relaxed, right? Change in feeling. So it's not about relaxation. It's about the feeling. And the relaxation helps because, it's calming your body. It's opening up the energy channels. It's opening up your mind. Same thing, really. And so you're having a different experience. Your emotions have shifted. I, with my voice, is the anchor of shifting your emotions. Now we can shift inside your mind even more, right? Because it's not really the physical thing that would shift, although that it did happen. It's really the emotional thing that shifted. And so it's really that simple. Like, I can walk up to someone, start talking to them. Hey, you want to do an imagination experiment to test how your mind works? Yeah, right? It sounds fun. Okay, let's try it. Okay, first, imagine there's magnets in between your palms. And as you imagine and feel and pretend this, your hands will continue to go closer, and eventually touch. Now that your hands are touched, I want you to clasp your hands, and in a moment, they won't come apart because you imagine the glue that has them stuck together, right? There's a lot more pattern and wording to go into, but I'm speeding up for attention purposes, right? Now your hand's stuck to your head and you can't pull your hand off your head, right? Now your arm cannot bend no matter how hard you try. And so I do a few of these things. Their imagination, is fully locked into their physiology, and it's actually working. They're convinced that it's worked. What I'm saying, they're convinced by, right? And now it's like when first their imagination, I was able to just close their eyes. Now their imagination is literally a hallucination, and it's their reality, right? And this process can take 5-10 minutes, right? And so I think that's a huge understanding, especially if you've never seen it before, or never understood it. Like, it literally happens like that. And it's very easy stuff because it would only work if it's natural, right? Yeah.
All All right, I got some questions. So first of all, Michael, my recommendation to you with the regression, right, is maybe try it sometime when you're exhausted, because your mind, like Laura can only give me a good cranial sacral treatment when I'm exhausted, because otherwise, like my mind, even if though I want it, it's fighting, it's trying to stay in control of everything, it's doing all this stuff. But when I'm exhausted and I can't sort of resist or fight in any way, like out there kind of sessions. So it might work sort of similarly for you with the regression. But for you, Michael, a couple of things. I understand the level of hypnosis and mind control that can come from, NLP or from certain types of voices telling us certain types of things. And obviously they've used that to the nth degree over the course of the last year and a half. And I also understand concepts like psychic driving, right? With the same message over and over and over again, even if the person resisted at first, at a certain point, it's just like, shut the fuck up. Okay, whatever, I'll do it,
Yeah, really.
That kind of thing. But there's a couple of things that, like, I guess I have deeper questions about, right?
Yeah, please.
So my family members have PhDs, and they're also uniquely familiar based on their studies and their topics of interest in apartheid, right? And
apartheid, what is that? Apartheid?
Apartheid, like when they kept the black and white people separate in South Africa.
Oh, okay. I don't know about that. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So like in South Africa, it used to be that, like, there was a complete separation of the races, and that was known as apartheid. It's like, right. It's an Afrikaans word. It just means keep, like, the sort of scenario of keeping people apart based on biology. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're uniquely familiar with how this is brought into a society and what it is. And somehow they can't see that what's coming down is apartheid, right? Like, even though they're super expert at this, at what this is and how it's brought in and the things that happen to society, they cannot see that. And then also, like that is confusing to me, right? How I can see how we can't see things that we're not sort of uniquely familiar with in a specific way. But like when you are, like, the things I'm familiar with, I'm looking for them all the time, right? So I'm probably finding them where they don't actually exist sometimes, because you're looking for that. So when somebody is looking for that and it's right in their face and they can't see it, I guess in some ways that could be the negative hallucination or something. I don't know. But then the other thing is, and I've been noticing this a lot in the last few weeks, this celebrity will be on their Instagram video, right, or on their little thing, talking about how they got both pokes, but they still got COVID. It's so bad, you don't want it. Make sure you go out and get poked.
Yeah, I know, right?
Sense, right? Like, it's this, like, there's no logic to it. And then these same people that can't see this thing that they're uniquely familiar with are not somehow catching that is not a logic that makes sense. And you take people who are used to making arguments in order, like all of these, the theses and the papers that people who get PhDs write are all, you have to make this sort of logical argument and then try and show why that is so. And then they're presented like with it, like really a logic so insane that theoretically a kindergartner should be able to untangle it. And they're just like, yeah, that makes sense, right? And so is there some different kind of mind magic or hypnosis at play here? Because, like, we've reached a level that is like, when I watched what Michael was talking about, Building 7, you can go and you can watch that BBC broadcaster telling people about Building 7 having fallen while it's still standing there.
Right, exactly, yeah.
And I can understand how with television, when someone's telling you something is happening, even though your eyes see something else, when you're being told something else is happening, that there is a confusion there that not everybody can process. But this one, it seems like so stupid and unsophisticated. I don't even understand how not just some people, but like literally almost all except for a small group of people don't find anything unusual about it.
Yeah.
Any thoughts here on like, on is this just we've been like the society has been hypnotized and psychically driven for so many months on end that they just have lost any ability to not be, and so anything that a person says, if they have any level of like authority or sway or anything at all, you just taking it in? Like, I don't get it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, because it didn't start a couple months ago, or especially with the 9/11 thing. It wasn't just a month of indoctrination or whatever. We got to realize this
From the beginning of culture of TV, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Like through TV and especially through school, right? I mean, we're just heavily indoctrinated to listen to authority figures, right? And we normally are free, happy-going people who critically think and come to our own conclusions, right? But when they stick us in school, see, if I want to hypnotize somebody in the easiest way, I want them to have a weak critical factor to, the gateway into the subconscious, right? Some of us, like probably us on our call, we have very strong critical factors, right? I had a client once when I was showing this diagram, and she's like, wow, I must have a really big critical factor, right? Because she could see all this stuff way before anybody else did, and that's true, because a lot of people have very weak critical factors. And if I wanted to hypnotize the masses, I would make sure they had weak critical factors. How do you do that? Well, when somebody's brain is developing, let's stick them into this indoctrination program where they just regurgitate answers without coming to their own conclusions. Okay? Read the book, take the test. Read the book, take the test. Listen to the answers, take the test. Oh, you didn't get it right? Get out of here. Listen, sit down, get in line, right? So I would have them regurgitate information without thinking about it and get used to taking orders without thinking about it, right? I mean, think about it. When we're in school, by the time you're in 6th grade, 8th grade, like, you're not questioning what to do anymore. You hear the sound of the bell, like, okay, next class. Right? It's like post-hypnotic suggestions, right? It's like the Pavlov dog thing, right? You hear something, you're trained to do it, and you just do it. You don't even think about it. And so people who are the best students, people who followed along the most, generally speaking, are the ones that just, oh, the news tells me this. Oh, okay.
So, right. So Emily, can I take a stab at that? And I want to hear your thoughts on what I'm going to say, Michael. I think that's it's such an interesting thing what you just brought up about, like, the seeing Building 7 fall, and particularly, I personally hold the conclusions which I have reached is that I think that was purpose, that whole BBC thing, like. And the reason why is like really, really deep mind fuckery, because what that implies is so fucking scary to the typical person, which is saying this is this convoluted, this is that controlled, that they're unwilling to come to the conclusion of where that would bring, like, what you said, Michael, earlier, like cognitive dissonance. It's just, it's a word, but like, they're unwilling to reconcile with what that is. And going to like, this critical fear factor in terms of like what you can go and do and what you can't go and do, self-imposed or at least learned behaviors. And, I like to consider myself a gonzo researcher, because everything I do is always going to be like a point of reference from my own experience. I brought up a moment ago about like, I can't go deep in hypnosis, despite the fact that I want to, by very skilled hypnotists. I'm really good at getting into like light hypnotic states. Like I was kind of like hamming it up when I dropped my head when you were doing that, but I love that. Like I can really get into that, and I like surrender to it. But the conclusion which I've reached about myself, whether or not this is a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think is the same thing, the same phenomenon. And which is one of the reasons I'm so interested about this conversation, because once you understand it on the micro, it also applies to the macro, is there's something inside of me which is unwilling to go to that. Like, in the same reason, like the masses are unwilling to see like, oh, wow, they're rubbing my noses in this so much that it's so confused that I'm not going to go, I can't go there, I'm not going to see it. You know, now like little Mike right here is like, you want to go deep into like some of these memories, but you're not going to go there because you're not ready to go there. And so like that phenomenon, I think, is kind of universal, and it could be personal and it could be like large scale as well. One, what are your thoughts on that? And then two, how do you think that is addressed?
Yeah, that this is a main, it's basically a survival component to our mind, right? We have events that happen that train us to think a certain way. And if you have that established, and then all of a sudden an event comes up that tries to challenge it, your mind's going to be very strong to hold up who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it's a survival mechanism. And a lot of like how I see this being done, like, for example, you know, through the schooling and through the news, us hypnotists, we have this concept called pillars of belief, right? Pillars of belief hold up a concept that you'll be strong to. Okay. And so if for the person, like say the COVID stuff, right? These people have been watching the news every day, listening to the advertisements every day. I can't even believe how many advertisements that are going on the radio and the TV. It's really incredible. The whole repetition thing, oh my God, right? They're being so indoctrinated with this stuff. And so what's happening is they listen to the news, they go into a fearful state, they see the people on the screen dropping, right? Like we saw in the first clips of people getting scared about this, right? The fainting in the streets and stuff like that, right? People go into fear state. They then have this very carefully edited and constructed presentation. After that, all of the information goes into their subconscious mind, and a seed is planted for a pillar of belief to develop. Okay. And then they watch it again, and then they watch it again, and then they watch the new story, and then they watch the new update, and they watch it next month, and next month. And, you know, we go, you know, where are we at now? 550, 600 days? I don't know what it is, right? Imagine if I could sit down and hypnotize a person every day for 500 days. I mean, it's you know, the person is just like gone at that point. Whatever I would want them to think, I would control everything, right? And so they have all these pillars of belief in their subconscious mind, holding up the concept, right? And as soon as we come up with, you know, Building 7, or the FDA did, you know, revoke this thing, or the CDC said this, you didn't hear about it, or OSHA says this about masks, it just bounces off the construction of what the pillar is holding up, and it's just not even getting through. And then when you do start to shake a little bit, you say something that like gets them to think a little bit, and it kind of tests them. It's an emotional reaction. Conspiracy theorist, witch, right? And so they have, and guess what? It's usually a very set response every time, right? And I broke this down in my follow-up video to that cartoon video where I found a clip of kids. Why did you get the vaccine? Oh man, I said it. Why'd you get the right? I'm doing it for my family. I'm doing it for my family. I want to keep my family safe. I'm doing it for my family. And they're literally saying the same thing over and over and over and over, right? They don't know what the health benefits are. They don't know what's in it, right? They just want to help their family. They want to get over. They want to go out and play. They want to go out and be with their friends. And so they literally only have a hypnotized response that they've been programmed with, right? And this is extremely difficult to share with people, because I could literally have, you know, us hypnotists, we do this routine where, you know, one of the stars of the show has been doing all the crazy stuff that everyone, you know, has been cheering on and laughing at and laughing with and stuff. I'll bring them up and like, hey, so how's hypnosis feel? What are you talking about? You've been up here for like 30, 45 minutes or whatever. You've been going through all the routines. You came up and got hypnotized. You know, you came up from your seat. What's it feel like? What are you talking about? Right? Well, how long have you been up here for? Like a couple minutes, right? They're completely oblivious. I could try to explain to them exactly what happened. You were sitting here, you went up here, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, they won't believe it. Oh, you're not hypnotized? No. Okay, sleep. And then they drop. Right? So trying to explain this stuff to people who have been duped very deeply for many years, most of their life, it's really hard to get through to them. You know, it would take like serious therapy for them to come out of it.
So
you know, we need to snip the wire to their TV.
You bring up a really good point in that you always get a programmed response. I have never had anybody come back at me disagreeing with like a snappy, interesting response. Like I would almost like that, exactly. Right? Because to me that like I like even more that I'm going to be honest here. Like at this point in my life, even more than I care about the truth. I care about novelty and surprise and like, you know, that kind of thing. Like to me, that's really like what the spark and the joy of life is all about. And so at this point, I'm actually more interested in people that disagree with me than that agree with me, but disagree with me with like something snappy, some verb, something exciting, something that I'll be like, holy shit. Like if you can like thread this needle and tell me a good story, like you might make me a believer, right? Do that. But it's all the exact same 3 or 4, or what are you, a far right conspiracy theorist? Are you a Trump supporter? It's always the same dumb shit, right? I have never, ever had anybody come back at me with anything where I was, well, hot damn, you got me fooled on this one, right? Like I would love that. That would be super excited at this point. So my question to you is this, maybe, and maybe this can kind of frame sort of some of the rest of the conversation do we waste any more time trying to show these people, or do we just walk away? Because your point about the fact that, like, you know, you can ask the guy what it feels like to be hypnotized and he says, what are you talking about? And if my guess would be, if you can ever get somebody to question, like if you see that look in their eye where it's like starting to move for a second, my guess would be the next thing they say is, but how do I trust you? Because you're a hypnotist and you might be hypnotizing to believe me to believe that this is all hypnosis or whatever. So it becomes like this circular kind of thing. And think about how much time we've wasted trying to reason with people who are just interested in cyclical arguments, right? Yeah. And so like, is there a point to us trying to help them trying to, you know, snap the strings of hypnosis, or do we just walk away and have to hypnotize ourselves to not feel like we're being bad people or non-loving people for leaving our loved ones behind, because otherwise they're just going to drag us down into the swamp with them, right? As we sit there while rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, trying to convince them that that the ship is going, it just doesn't make sense. Where is that point where it's like, you know, or do we just put them to sleep so we don't have to worry about them controlling our reality anymore? I mean, I don't know. What do we do?
Yeah. One thing I used to do to hypnotize more people on stage is I would literally social distance them from each other. I didn't use that term, but if you have someone next to you. Yeah, exactly. I would stagger the chairs so they're literally like 5-6 feet apart from each other, and so they wouldn't disturb any. You know, so if I had a group of unruly kids or whatever, you usually have these kids. You know, the kid sitting next to someone who's trying to do it, like he's gonna get you, he's gonna make you do it, crap like a chicken, right? And so then I have this group of like 4 people that don't get hypnotized because they're like laughing and like making fun of it while I'm trying to do the thing, right? And so that's what we, you know, that's what we could have been doing, right? But at some point, everyone gets hypnotized and it doesn't matter anymore, right? And so you can try to disrupt them all you want, but they're gone. Right. So, I mean, for a lot of people, you know, we're past that stage, but at the same time, hypnotic states can go away. You know, a hallucination does go away. If I let someone sit on stage and then ever take them out of it, you know, or someone in a therapy session, they just fall asleep and they wake up later on. Right. And then they come to their own conclusions. Oh, yeah. I'm not seeing, you know, the clown in the middle of the room anymore. It's just the room, right? There's no, some things can stick, you know, but eventually you come to your own conclusions. But with all the repetition and the social isolation, you know, that's really been a key component to this. And like, as soon as an idea comes into your subconscious mind, you then come up with your own reasonings to back up why it's true, right? So if I hypnotize someone to forget the number 7, right? They're going to, even though it's like such a straight thing, and when they count their fingers, they come up to 11 and they can't understand it, you know, they're trying to figure it out, but they just live with the concept of, well, okay, I guess I have 11 fingers now, right? It's like the hallucination sticks, and their own subconscious comes up with its reasoning. It's kind of like when they're getting the kids to answer the questions on the daily pass thing on this tracking app. Am I sick? 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 Every day they're asking, are they sick? Are they sick? Do I have a sniffle? Do I have an ache? Am I a little tired? Do I have any dizziness? Right? They have all their, so the moment they even feel the slightest thing, they're then going to become a genius at seeing some kind of sickness. Just like some of us may be a genius at finding opportunities. You know, those of us who want to be successful, like we can program ourselves to find reasons to be excited and motivated, right? I'm not sure if those examples are very relatable or make sense. But you did touch upon something that made me think about that, you know, because they might not have a good story to tell you to convince you, but it's convincing themselves, right? They're finding their own reasons. And then once they run out of reasons, they're just going to shut you out, right? Just like they don't like somebody because they've been programmed. Oh, this person is a racist. He's a conspiracy theorist, you know, a bad person, right? And the news has done very well to compartmentalize people's minds to think like that. And so you're someone wrong. I'm going to, you know, block you, right? So
that's interesting you say that, because I remember, what was it, like maybe about 2 months ago, that became part of like the mainstream talking points of celebrity role models introducing the idea of having to cut people out of their lives because they don't believe with them. They're not on the same page. And I think you kind of, I loved how Emily like kind of tied this into like, well, okay, well, you know, let's put this in context to what we do right now, and you know, with the rest of humanity who's on the receiving end of this. And when you see people doing that and like being able to understand the power of repetition, and being able to understand that that coupled with isolation will be able to keep people in a particular state. But then when the repetition goes away and when the isolation goes away, people can wake up out of the dream. Like, and one of the things which I've, you know, Emily and I've talked about this many times in the course of this past year and a half, has been like how surprised we've been of like who buys it and who don't. And so like that is also, I think that's an interesting thing for each person to think about that right now, in terms of like, how do we move forward in terms of like the choices which we make for, you know, our own next moves, which include like, you know, the people we care about.
Yeah. I know, right? I mean, I'm battling with the same thing, you know, me knowing hypnosis. I mean, there's a lot of people I couldn't convince to not get their medical procedures.
Yeah.
You know, because they have more of a connection with their TV than me. You know, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I saw a good meme recently. Someone shared how they went to their parents' house and used the parental settings to block CNN.
Yeah.
You know, I guess that's a method, right? Try to cut off the stations. But really, you know what my end solution is like, guess what? We got to learn how to control our own minds. And when we come to learning how to control our own minds, we then learn how to manifest our reality. And that's another thing I've been able to really master is manifest situations that you want, right? What do you want? Money, place to live, relationships, opportunities, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, what do we want, right? And where's the focus? Because this whole scenario can really drive us insane. right? And destroy our own lives. And so, you know what? There's a lot of things that are out of our own control, but the only thing that we can control is ourselves and our state of being, if we know how to. And that's like where I end off, you know, and get to. And that's now I've started to come out with this training to do that. I'm giving it away for free on YouTube. You can find me on YouTube, Michael Grady, and I can literally teach you how to use your mind, how to control your mind. And that really equates into the whole law of attraction manifestation thing, which I don't really like to use those terms so much, you know, because they've been, you know, really foo-fooed and new age so much. But I've learned from people who have defected from high-level secret societies to teach me this stuff in a very structured way, which
I want to hear those stories, Michael. What do you mean you talk to people high?
Yeah.
Well,
I was thinking maybe, you know, we have Michael back sometime soon.
I would like, because this was a good introduction sort of thing, because I love where you're coming from. I love the information. I don't mean to cut you off, because you're going to tell people where they can find your information. But the problem is I got to run right this second. So I'm going to disappear. and I want to say, Michael, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for sharing your information, all of this sort of stuff. I've got a lot to think about, and I'm going to probably reach out and maybe send you some of those private messages. But thank you for coming. It was great to meet you. You got a real special talent. I could already tell.
So yeah. Michael Wan, you have a lovely evening, and
thank you.
I will see you later. And okay. Michael Grady, I think we would like to invite you to come back sometime where we can talk about really more the like what you're talking about, because that's been part of my work. You know, this whole series we've done over the course of the last year with Playing the Glass Bead Game has been a lot about making magic of your everyday life and sort of finding a way to synthesize this decadent garbage culture into something meaningful and being able to manifest some of the things that you like through laws of synchronicity and underlying order and all of this kind of stuff. So maybe we'll have you back real soon to kind of go into that side of your work. But before we leave the people here, can you tell them where they can find you and all that jazz?
Sure. Yeah. Like I said, you can search Michael Grady on YouTube. That's really where I'm putting everything out right now. And I wanted to end off with, you know, the power of prayer. You know, it's really a real thing. You know, we can look at the studies of the Maharishi effect and how war activity goes down when you have a certain amount of people, you know, praying and stuff like that. But really, there's no difference between praying and thinking and feeling. It's all the same thing. And so if we can get people to just feel better generally and utilize this emotional situation and transmute it into something positive, because, you know, now it's something important to focus on. It really can be the most miraculous thing ever.
That sounds amazing. That's awesome, Michael. So guys, you can find him on YouTube at Michael Grady. If you'd like to see the patron segment, which we recorded before we started here with Michael, go to patreon.com/offplanetmedia or projectkids.locals.com. And we will see you next time. Michael Grady, he'll be back. Hang on for just a second. I want to ask you something when we're off the recording. Okay. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.